Before we get started on today's video, I just want to make an announcement that Super Clean has given us an opportunity to do a giveaway on the channel. And all you have to do to be entered into the giveaway is subscribe and then comment down below the code that I'm going to give you twice for this computer. And it will be in the midst of the video. You'll see me talk about what code is on the sticker on this computer. And just put that in the comments down below. Make sure you're subscribed. I'll draw a random comment using one of the third-party websites, and then I'll present your username and your information to Super Clean, and they'll send you some products for free. So let's get going on the video. Welcome back to Glove It Up Garage. I'm back to work on the 95 GTS. And before this thing goes outside to sit for a couple of months while I get some other stuff finished up, I'm just not ready to give up and kick it out there without it running. I feel like there's something small and minor that's keeping this from starting and running. The compression could be low due to the car just sitting and the rings kind of compressing in the cylinders. Maybe the valves are getting stuck and they're not closing all the way. But I feel like there might be another underlying issue. And even in the comments, you guys had suggested to check the computer. That's a quick and easy thing. I can access the computer here in just a few minutes. I happen to have two other known good computers on two other SN95s that haven't been introduced to the channel yet. We'll get around to that at another time. But I'm going to grab a computer from one of those cars, put it into this car, just do a real quick, see if it'll start. And if it doesn't, then I know I've got an issue deeper in the engine, and I'll figure it out from there. At that point, I'll just go back to plan A, which is primer the roof, and then push this thing outside next to the other two SN95s that I haven't shown you guys yet. And yeah, we'll address this in the future when I got more time, or when it's time to do the 351 Windsor swap, because per your all's suggestions, of course I said I threw that idea out there that what do you all think about the 95 Cobra R clone? And with the overwhelming response, everybody seemed to agree that this would be an awesome car to do that to. So that is what this car is going to be. It is going to be our 95 Cobra R, the clone, a tribute, whatever you want to call it. But to make this car easier to work on, if it runs and drives, it's easier for me to get in and out of the shop. So I'm going to go grab that computer, hop back on this, set you guys up on the tripod, and we'll see what happens. So we're out here at one of the other project vehicles, and to get to the computer on SN95 is pretty easy if you're not trying to do it one-handed. But basically you pop up this sill plate right here, and that will allow you to get access to this kick panel that's right next to it. And then once the kick panel is out of the way, we can get in here and get to the computer. On the end of the kick panel here, there's one of these little plugs that Ford loves to use for upholstery, and that pops right out of there. And now we can pull this kick panel up and out of the way. All right, so now on the inside of here we got a few plugs and a piece of insulation that's in the way. So these plugs will pop right out of the way off of their little holders. And it looks like somebody's been in here once before to mess with this computer. I wonder if it's got a chip. So normally, there's a 7mm bolt right there that you have to take out. Okay, so it's still there. All right, so luckily I brought the 7, and I brought the extension with me, and I brought my trusty Milwaukee ratchet. Get this on here. And then we'll make this where you guys can see this part. And it helps if you get it on the bolt. There we go. Maybe. Oh, it's smaller than the 7. Somebody has been in here before, because that should be a 7, but that's like a, I don't know what that is. 5.5mm. All right, I gotta go grab another socket. I know some of you guys are probably yelling about that. It's a 5.5, you idiot. Well, I didn't know. So I got a 5.5. It's only hand tight. All right. We'll grab that screw. I don't want it dropping down into the body. It's not exactly easy to get to. All right, now we got that bracket off. Now I can slide this computer a little bit down and out of that bracket so I can get to the next bolt, which is not really a bolt, but that 10 millimeter right there is what holds this harness to the computer. And usually it's a lot of fun to get down in there. And you know what I didn't bring with me? That's an 8. I didn't bring a 10. Dang it. All right, I'll be right back. So when you actually find your 10 millimeter socket, you can, take that harness loose from the computer. So we got that harness loose. Then we just pop it off of the computer without bending the pins like that. Now we should be able to pop the computer out and around all of the stuff that Ford put in the way down here. There we go. And then we get to do this all over again when we get over to the white car. Whew. All right, I'm gonna gather up my tools and head back up to the white car. Before I pull this computer out real quick, I wanted to show you something. On this computer from that other 94, T4MO is the calibration code for this computer. It happens to match the one that's in this 95 GTS. But it's very important that you verify that code is the same. You can see, yeah, right there, T4MO. So that's the important thing. I mean, you can swap around some computers on Fox body sometimes, but when it comes to the SN95s, you really can't do that. So I'm going to get in here. I apologize for it being shaky, but this is really tough to do, kind of one-handed. All right, we're going to pop this harness off because it's actually still got its little pin on it. We'll get to that one. In theory, this should have way less connectors and stuff because, well, this car doesn't have all the options that red car does. All right, so we got all these connectors are now loose, except for that last one. There we go. And we'll see. Okay, yeah, it's still got the same kind of bolt, we'll see if it's hand tight like the other one was too. Sure enough, it's just not very tight. Because you can't really put a lot of torque on that little bitty screw. All right, we'll get that out of there. Cool. All right, there's that. We'll get our computer loose from the bracket. This one's gonna fight me. All right, I'm gonna have to put the phone down to get that out of there. It's really tight. You know, my mind told me to grab a 7 millimeter for some reason, and I couldn't exactly remember why. And that's because if you take the two 7 millimeter bolts out on this bracket that all these harnesses attached to, it makes life a lot easier. So we got the computer out that may possibly be bad. I'm going to set that aside, put that computer in, and very carefully tighten down the screw that goes up in there that compresses the harness to the computer. I'm a little bit out of breath because, man, I really had to fight with that to get it out of there. All right, I'm going to come back once I've got that in. Since I don't know if that's going to work or not, I just flipped the harness, 180 degrees and went ahead and put the computer on and tightened it down. None of those plugs are loose, so let's throw a battery in and see what happens. Well, the important thing is that we put the plugs back in all the way and make sure that they're tight because I took them loose and I'm not 100% sure that I got them in there very tight because I think I kind of got frustrated with it. Yeah. All right, number 2 is tight. Number 1's a little loose. All right, it's back on here. Okay, plugs are tight. Let's get our correct plug wires put back on. That's number 1. Number 2. Cool. Now that's on there. I'm going to set the battery up in here. Hook up the terminals real quick. Alright, I'll plug the coil back in. All of my sensors are plugged up. The mass air I'm not really worried about. Everything's clear in the throttle body. Alright. Let's see what happens. Tried to fire. I'm going to start unplugging some sensors and see if maybe one of these things is malfunctioning, and I'm going to start with a mass air meter just because it's one of the easier ones to get to. I know my timing's good. It did start to fire. Not fire, it did start to run. My coil's plugged in. That's all plugged in. Idle air control motor, TPS is in. Alright. Let's see if unplugging the mass air meter does anything to help. We're back to square one. Even with the computer swapped out, it's doing the exact same thing that it was last time, except it's trying harder to fire on the first time than it did than last time. I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and charge this battery because I can tell it's getting a little weak. And then other than that, I don't really know what else to do. I mean, we've tried swapping computers. I know it's got a new distributor in it. I'll try putting the old distributor back in just to see if maybe there's something up with the new one that's maybe it's not wired correctly, or you know, when you get aftermarket parts, I mean, sometimes they're just not perfect either. So I'll start there. I'm going to throw that other distributor in and see where that gets us. So I've got the distributor loose. I've brought my timing up to where the rotor is on the number 1 cylinder. I've got that marked. I looked down there at the timing marks just to kind of see where it was. It's around 20 degrees, so it is a little bit advanced of where it needs to be, but for what I'm going to do here, it'll at least get me in the ballpark. Alright, so my rotor is pointing right at that intake manifold bolt. So when I go to lift this distributor out, I know when I put it back in, I need it to point at that bolt. So I've got my distributor hold down loose, and I use this really old Craftsman wrench that's made for distributors to get in there. So I'm going to go ahead and wiggle this thing up and out, and then I'm just going to look at this. I know this is a new distributor and everything, but my gut still is leaning towards there's something mechanical going on with this car. I'm going to pop this other cap off. Now when you go to put this in, as these teeth engage the cam, it will want to turn this rotor in here. And what I think is going on with this car is I think this pickup inside of here is either bad on that other distributor or just not reading the right kind of signal. I know there's a bunch of different like Hall effect and stuff like that that they make for these cars. One of the things too, you need to make sure when you're putting this back in that you pick up the oil pump engagement. And then we'll get that turned somewhere in the ballpark. See where that gets us. Okay, yeah, we're too far over, so I need to come up, turn my rotor that way. We're still like one tooth off. And one more tooth over. That's close enough, I think. Alright, I'll put the hold down back in and see if I can't get it timed from there. I mean, it may be one tooth off, but if it's going to run, it'll still run one tooth off. It just won't be the best timing. I'll just kind of snug that up. I mean, it is pretty close. Then we'll plug this in. There. Plug our coil back in. I'm going to go ahead and plug the mass air meter back in, because if it was a distributor issue, now we will have alleviated that problem. But now my wires from my mass air meter are stuck over here in the basement. Alright, that's plugged in. Alright, let's hook up this terminal and see where it gets us. I thought I was recording through most of this, and come to find out I wasn't, which sucks because you can see things escalated. So what I know now for sure is that the cam doesn't appear to be broken. When I turn the motor over by hand, all of the rockers are rocking, all the push rods are pushing. I'm not really sure what is going on with this thing. Swapped out the computer, that didn't fix it. Verified timing, that didn't fix it. Reset the original distributor. I've got another distributor that I tried that didn't work. Swapped out TFI module. Unplugged the EGR delete module. Unplugged a ton of sensors under the hood. I know it's getting spark because I threw a timing light on just when I was checking the timing. It lit up. It wasn't super bright, but I know it's at least getting spark. I know we're getting fuel because, well, when the intake was still on and you turned it over, I could put my hand over the throttle body and I could feel air pushing out of the throttle body, and I could see the vapor from the fuel coming out also. The idea that there's air coming back up through the intake and through the throttle body tells me that there's something extremely wrong mechanically inside of this engine. We shouldn't be getting air coming back up through the intake. So either we've got some valves that are stuck open and it's allowing the compression to come up through, which with these two cylinders right here at 50 PSI, and I haven't tested everything else yet, but it's a possibility that we got a lot of hung valves or bent valves. And if that's the case, I have to dive into this a lot further. The heads are going to have to come off, and honestly, if I'm getting that far into it, I know already I don't want to keep this engine in there, that I want to swap it over to a 351. So, I'm not going to invest a whole lot of time into this engine. The only thing I really wanted to do was to get this running, again, to make it easier to go in and out of the shop. But the second thing about that was to verify that all of the sensors and the computers and all of the equipment in here worked before swapping engines. Because now, if I put my 351 in and I have an issue, you know, it could still be related to whatever we got going on with this. So obviously, this wasn't the outcome that we had hoped for. You know, I would love to have this thing run, but it is what it is. We'll get this all cleaned up, put some primer on the roof, get this outside, move on to the next car. In fact, the next video you all might see, maybe I'll introduce that red car that I snagged the computer out of and show you what that car is all about. So make sure to stay tuned. Click those bell icons so that you're notified when I upload new videos. For the giveaway, that is going to end October 31st of 2024. So make sure to watch for the code that I had in the previous clips. Drop that in the comments so that you're entered to win some free Super Clean products. For now, I'm going to get this thing put back together and get it outside. So thank you for the likes. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the subscribes. Thanks for all of your support. And I'll catch you later. Remember to stay gloved up.